Welcome to Mississippi Success, your one-stop for conversations with individuals from and in Mississippi that are making a difference. If you're looking for examples of Mississippi's best, then this is the show for you. Now here is your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Mississippi Success. And I'm once again joined by our co-host today, Melissa Banks, the founder of DMD Event Planning and Design. Melissa, glad to have you back with us with Mississippi Success.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, look, it was great being able to be with you when you co-hosted with Deborah Hunter to introduce her and her story, what she's been able to do this year. Before we get into today's guest, though, Melissa, for our audience who may have missed our segment with Deborah, why did you decide to be able to want to spotlight this particular group of women?
Well, I wanted to spotlight women that I saw had the energy and the push to continue pushing toward their dreams, even if things weren't looking well. I also wanted to spotlight women who thrived in this environment. I mean, came up with ways that made their business work, even though this wasn't what we planned. Nobody planned for the year to look like this year. I just believe that if women tell their story and other women hear their story, it motivates them and inspires them to go for their dreams and to keep going. So the women we're talking to me, shows all of that, gives you all of that in order to give you that push to keep going and believing in yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, these examples are so important. I appreciate that, Melissa. So who do we have with us today?
Today we're going to be talking to Joanne Bell. Hi, Joanne. How are you today?
Hey, Melissa. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being willing to just come on and talk with Cyrus and myself a little bit about your business and how you've been able to keep going. I know that you've done a whole lot of things over the years, and you've had this push. One of the things, Joanne, that I really admire you about is you've always been about inspiring women and honoring women for what they do. So tell us a little bit about Woman to Woman with Joanne, the magazine, and your inspiration for starting that.
So my inspiration behind Woman to Woman, the magazine, was just to share Mississippi women and to show Mississippi in a positive light. I used to, whenever I was out somewhere in a store or whatever, I would pick up all these different magazines, not understanding why at the time. But I would see some of the same faces in every magazine, and I was like, I know there are more people here in Mississippi who have a story or who have something good going on, and we just don't know about it. So my goal was to just provide a platform for women here in Mississippi to share their story, to encourage women all over the world. And with our magazine, it is international on issue.com. There are people from Ghana and Portland and just everywhere who are reading our magazine. And so I'm just excited that people are able to see Mississippi in a positive light instead of the negative that most other people try to show about Mississippi.
Oh, that's awesome. I can remember, Joanne, when you first started Woman to Woman and being privileged to be on the cover of one of the early issues, and that was a very rewarding experience for me. But Woman to Woman has evolved from the magazine, and some other things are happening with with Woman to Woman. What other things are going on with you in Woman to Woman, the magazine?
Awesome. So when Woman to Woman started back in 2014, it started as a Facebook page where I was just supposed to share my opinions and thoughts and everything, and then it evolved into empowerment. And then it evolved to doing small let's talk sessions to provide a space for women to just come and just share what they were feeling. And now we have started our talk show. September 1st was our first talk show, and I'm telling you, I just can't describe the bubbling over feeling that I felt and still feel. When we do an episode of the talk show, it's just my daughter's like, Mom, I don't understand why you're so nervous every Tuesday, when you're getting ready to do this show, but it's just it's awesome. And I love, my favorite part about doing the magazine and doing the talk show is just sitting down and hearing the stories of these amazing women who have gone through things and have a story to tell and the reason why they did what they did and what they went through and how they're able to come out of it, all of it being because of the grace of God that's helping them. And then they're able to share their stories to encourage other women, including me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the reasons I thought you would be perfect for this spotlight, Joanne. It's because you have that passion, and we share that passion for lifting women up and inspiring women. Even in the middle of a pandemic, you were able to launch your talk show in the middle of what's going on. Share with our audience about how you've been able to pivot your business, even in this environment, but thrive in this environment as well.
You know, I was, and I've told this story a couple of times, how I tried to do this talk show a couple years back, even filmed like 3 episodes, but it just wasn't looking and going the way I wanted it to look and go. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait. And then out of the blue, there was a guy that I had worked with before. He asked me, he said, hey, would you like to do a weekly show? And I was like, what? Yeah, you know. And when he asked that, it was like, oh, my God, God has just always been working behind the scenes, even when you can't see him, even when you sometimes can't feel him. He is always working behind the scene to make things come together the way he plans it, not the way that we plan it. So when he came to me and asked me that, he was like, so you need to choose your first talk show guest. And I was like, I remember when that first name came to mind, and I was so scared that they weren't going to want to do it. And so it was 2 weeks before I even finally asked her, and it was Rita Brent. And I asked her, and she was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And I was like, oh, my God, she said yes. So from there, the first show aired September 8th, and it's been going strong ever since. We've been able to get sponsors and, you know, people to pay to have their commercials run on the show. So it's just been all God is all I can say, because, again, I was just sitting and waiting, trying to figure out when was the best time to try and do it again. And I had even made up my mind that I would just do a Facebook show, try to do it Zoom, even though that's not how I wanted it to be. I was thinking, well, maybe I just got to start somewhere and, you know, grow from there. But God was like, Woman to Woman with Joanne is simple but elegant. Everything that we do, the goal is not to be perfect, but for it to be simply elegant. And God, I'm telling you, when Mark Davis came to me and he introduced the idea to me, and then we sat down and we went to the studio, and I thought everything was set up and I didn't have to do anything but just show up. God made it so easy to be able to do that. It's not trying to get cameras together, trying to get somebody to do this, trying to get somebody. It's all in one place, and I just go, and they do it all. And it's wonderful. It's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to grow. So it's been all God through this pandemic, even though so many bad things have happened during this pandemic. Even in my family, my sisters have had COVID, and my daughter just tested positive for COVID. She's doing wonderful. She's back to her old self. But we could choose focus on the negative things that have happened during this pandemic, or we can choose to focus on the positive things, because when you do that, you'll almost always see that the positive outweigh the negative. I haven't said this a lot, but even during the pandemic, I went through a divorce. A lot of people don't even know I went through a divorce during this pandemic. But God said, I have something better in store to keep you going, to keep you from, you know, allowing this pandemic and all of the bad stuff that's going on around you to consume you. I'm going to give you something to keep you going. And that's what he did. And it's been all God.
That is absolutely awesome, Joanne. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I firmly believe that if you continue to push, you open your eyes and you hear God, you honor God, and you're obedient, in the end, it will work out for your good, because that's what he promised, right? So, and that's what you did. So even though we were in the middle of a famine, but I believe God can bless you in a famine, and that's what you just said, that God, this idea came to you in the middle of a whole lot of bad things going on. But choosing to focus on the positive and continuing to move forward, got you to where you are now and is continuing to push you forward. That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So what's next for you, Joanne?
Well, next I'm actually working on a lot of stuff is next. Even through the pandemic, God started rebuilding my confidence, because we can go through things and it can break you sometimes. It'll steal your confidence. It'll steal your security in yourself. And so he led me to start doing a Reading the Bible with Joanne on I was doing it every night for a whole almost month, seems like, because we were reading the book of Isaiah. And it was just wonderful doing that every night helped me to see that when in the Bible, when it says, if you meditate on the word day and night, if you are taking in that word every day like a medicine, then it will make you feel better. It will restore your joy. It will give you happiness, and the joy that nobody can take away from you. So now we do Reading the Bible with Joanne every Tuesday and every Monday and Friday at 10 p.m. when people are trying to settle down and get ready for bed. If you're wanting to tune in, it's on our Woman to Woman with Joanne page. We read the Bible every Monday and Friday at 10 p.m. But also, God has given me so many other things. I got a couple books I'm finishing up. I actually went in the studio with a lady who wrote a song, and I've written my own song. So I'm like, there is so much to be done. So I'm just looking forward to the journey. Oh, wow.
That's so wonderful, Joanne. Cyrus, I wanted to turn it back over to you at this point so that you can have some questions for Joanne as well.
All right, Joanne, again, glad that Melissa brought you to the program today to be able to spotlight your story. I want to actually piggyback off something you just said. You were talking about other books coming out. For those who don't know, Joanne wrote a book called Fear Was My Friend. In that book, you talked about living with fear, growing up with fear, Joanne. So I guess an obvious question would be for our audience out there who are hearing about the things you've been able to do this year in spite of everything going on is the how, right? Because for so many people, this year has been paralyzing. How did you not allow fear to stop you even through this difficult year that we've been having?
I'm going to say that I had people around me who were encouraging, who were helping to keep me going, to push, give me that extra little push that I needed, because fear doesn't go anywhere. It's always going to whisper in your ear and try to make you feel this way or think that way. But having the energy and having the support system to continue to encourage you to move forward, that's what really helped me to move. And I can't even remember who I was listening to, but they were saying, fear is always going to be there, but don't think about fear. Think about the thing that's in front of you that you need to do, and do it in spite of the fear, And so that's all I had to stand on was, this is what I feel like God is telling me to do. This is what has been presented to me. Let's run with it. And I remember when we started doing the show, and then we had to get like 3 shows, and then I started worrying about how I was going to pay for it, because, of course, it's not free to do it. But God said, you didn't have the money to start it, so don't worry about how it's going to finish. I gave it to you to start. I'm going to take care of it, And I was like, okay, God, you got it, So just being willing to step out and do it afraid. That's what I had to do, and that's what I have to do every day, every single day. Because, again, fear doesn't go anywhere. But we have a choice to decide whether we're going to let fear run us and do what fear wants us to do, or if we're going to do what God is telling us to do.
Last thing I want to talk to you about, Joanne, is about showing up. You mentioned what you're doing with Mondays and Fridays, of course, being able to share from the scriptures there. I've noticed other lives you've been able to do. Of course, you even stream your show live on Facebook as well. I think a lot of times one of the things that 2020 has shown us is the power and the importance of social media. So I have to ask you about that. How has that helped you to amplify your voice? Because you have this voice that you've been able to share in a variety of ways, but how has social media, namely Facebook for you, helped to amplify that voice?
It just really gives a platform where you can share what God has put on your heart to share. And, when I hear people respond to the readings of the Bible, or the talk shows saying how this really helped me, this opened my eyes to this, or this opened my eyes to that. Social media, if it hadn't been for social media, I wouldn't have this platform to, have a voice. So I'm grateful for the social media, and the Facebook is what I really, focus on, and just started the YouTube channel, so it's available on YouTube. And, God actually opened up another door to where the show shows on JSU TV. And they show it more than on Tuesdays at 7, but they run it sometimes during the day. So, but the social media aspect of it really just gave me a start, because that's where it all started, on social media.
So would that be your advice then, Joanne? I know you mentioned that, for you, and it's interesting to hear you say that that your initial thing was just to start, and maybe something would come from it. For people out there who are listening and are thinking about what to do moving forward, is your advice to them just to start?
Yes, just start. Just start. You can write down all these plans. You can make all these plans, and it could be so beautifully written on your paper. But if you never start, then nobody will ever know about it. So the first thing that you have to do is start. Just start, and then let God lead you the rest of the way.
Really good. Again, everyone, Joanne Bell has been our guest for this segment. We've been talking with her, thanks to Melissa Banks, about not only how she's been able to rise and thrive this year, but also the example. Melissa, any final thoughts for Joanne?
Well, just thank you so much, Joanne, for just getting started and then being so willing to be open and to share and to uplift women. I continue to say that when women uplift women, we all win and we all move forward. So you have really represented that in a wonderful way, even though you talked about some of the personal things that were happening with you, but you were also pushing through all of that, including the pandemic, and staying focused on what your purpose was. And I believe that as long as you're staying focused on your purpose, you will succeed. So thank you so much for being willing to be here and to share your story and to encourage us all. I know I'm encouraged, and I know everyone who hears this segment will also be encouraged. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you all so much for having me on the show today.
Hey, glad to do it. So, Joanne, before we let you go, let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you, and more importantly, how can they also stay connected with what you do with not only the magazine but also the talk show? Awesome.
So I'll give my email address is Joanne, Joanne, at woman2womanwithjoanne.com. And that's long, but that's what it is, WOMAN, woman2womanwithjoanne.com is my email. If you have questions, you can call me. I'm at 601-398-6733. We also have on our Facebook page and our magazine page, it's Woman to Woman with Joanne. And then our website is www.woman2womanwithjoanne.com. That's
all right. She's made it very easy for you guys. Again, Joanne, congratulations to you. Definitely keep up the great work. Melissa, so glad to have you join us for this segment. I really appreciate that. And Melissa, I don't think I did this during our last segment together. Let our listeners know how to stay connected with you, too.
Okay, you can stay connected with me by visiting our website at DMD Event Planning and Design. We're on Facebook at DMD Event Planning and Instagram at DMD Event Planning and Design.com. Thank you so much, Cyrus, for this opportunity to be with you today.
Well, look, the pleasure is definitely all mine. I'm glad that it was on your heart to be able to honor these individuals who are definitely making a difference. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Mississippi Success. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, let's make today amazing. Take care.